All right, one last bit of news here. Bob Bradley is out at Norwegian second division side Stabæk after the club dropped its third game in a row over the weekend, falling to 7th in the second division. Bradley, who was in charge of the team last season when they were relegated, and the club are mutually parting ways. That's a language in the release while in Norway. Bradley was being assisted by his son, Michael Bradley, who was part of the staff out there. Herc, Bob Bradley, your former manager, 66 years old now. What do you think's next for Bob?
Great question.
TV? Football Americas?
Maybe.
Put him right in the middle between us?
What?
He could play peacemaker?
You say it jokingly, but he can be charismatic behind the scenes. And if,
I don't say, well, I won't say that. I don't have a lot of nice things to say about Bob Bradley, but I think he'd be great on television.
well, in the same vein, that look at how Bill Belichick's doing in ESPN.
Yeah.
You know, it's the same vein, and he's got a wealth of experience, 30 years. But to answer your question,
He also tells it like it is. You know, he'll
tells
tell you
it how
he
it
thinks
is,
we
man.
should have pro rel. He thinks all that stuff. He said it
he
before.
feels it. He's about that life.
Yep.
You two are very similar, believe it or not.
Don't tell him that.
No, but Bob very much is. There's nothing a secret with Bob. You know where you stand at all times.
Definitely.
With them, good or bad. Now, what I will say, it's a 30-plus year career, 30 years career right there. 1996, DC United assistant, and then we all know how that turned out. He parlayed it into Chicago Fire, and then US
I got to think if he's
national
willing to
team.
go coach in the second division in Norway.
That was
he's
more a
not done
passion
yet.
project. That was
but he's
love
not
of
done
Bob.
yet.
No,
That's what it tells me.
And there are plenty of clubs that I think I don't put Bob.
MLS clubs, you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't put Bob in this vein of 1.0, 2.0, and you think the game's passed him by.
You put him in the Bruce Arena category?
I put him above the Bruce Arena category.
Really?
Yeah.
But guys who can kind of transcend all eras.
And with all due respect to Bruce Arena, because we still don't know what his situation is there. But Bob Bradley has vast experience in going to a club that is either new, ground up, or just a club that needs a resurgence, and being that resurgence, being that person to just light a fire in them and change them in the right direction. And I could think of a few clubs.
Can I throw some at you?
Please.
San Jose?
They need something, an injection of life. New ownership would help. John Fisher, the worst owner in sports. I don't know if Bob Bradley has it in him to work under a person like that.
Yeah, you're right. I could see him fighting the good fight there and that not going well. Chicago, Dallas, either of those?
Chicago,
we know that there's somebody kind of waiting in the wings there.
Yeah, I mentioned it, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, before you started taking credit.
Steady.
That there's somebody at the helm right there being ready who lives in Chicago.
Yeah. Although it might not be the coaching job, huh? Might be a sporting director job.
Both.
Maybe he brings in Bob as his coach.
I think it's both.
Okay.
What I will say is, wherever it is, I'm not betting against Bob Bradley. I know Bob Bradley has his faults, and there are many. There are many. But Bob Bradley is one of those guys, especially in this circle, that I just think knows what it's about and can get something done. And listen, I could see a scenario where it's 2 for 1, Bob and Michael Bradley.
Really?
And Michael having a resurgence, if you will, or a surgence, an emergence, I should say, into the coaching ranks.
You know what? I like a couple cities in specific here for that duo, Atlanta and Austin.
Atlanta would be an amazing.
I don't know about Austin yet. Josh Wolf's still there, obviously, but I think the Atlanta situation. I think if you're bringing in Bob Bradley, it's not to be mediocre. You're bringing in an ambitious guy who's going to want to push. I think those are two. To me, Chicago and Dallas, even San Jose, that's going to end badly because they're not going to be at his level.
Correct.
Whereas I think Atlanta and Austin could give him the tools to win in MLS, which is what
I'm trying to think if Bob Bradley would have issue or take issue with having somebody pull the strings. And I think if Atlanta's situation.
At LAFC, he had,
John Thorrington. Yeah. But John is by far one of the best executives in Major League Soccer, and I don't know how hands-on he was when Bob was there. But I'm thinking of somebody who's very hands-on and won't let the manager not have his say, but manipulate things, if you will. And that's going to be Garth Lagerwey. I think Garth right now, for the first time in probably all his history in Atlanta United, has the ability to bring in a coach. He didn't have that opportunity in Seattle.
Yep.
Siggy Schmidt, unfortunately, was fired, and in comes in Brian Schmetzer, and Brian Schmetzer just knocks it out the park, and he stays with it. But he's never had his opportunity to actually hire a coach. Now he does. He can hire a coach and a few DPs. I don't think Garth Lagerwey is going to waste that bullet on somebody he thinks might want to be more hands-on.
All right, so there we have it. Bob Bradley out of work in Norway, but potentially, excuse me, getting choked up thinking about Bob, looking for work here in Major League Soccer.